I started to feel unwell. General shivers and not feeling very well. I went to my GP, which I don't normally do, and I just said, look, I don't feel very well. And he did take my obs, and I didn't seem to have a temperature. And he actually sent me home, saying, go home and drink some Lucozade. So I got on with it. I managed to work through the week. I was having to go to bed between classes and take loads of paracetamol. And I felt really bad, but I didn't feel that I was dying or anything like that. I didn't feel great at all. And because I'd been reassured by the GP that he was just unwell, really, I just got on with it. And anyway, it was a Saturday morning, and I remember getting out of bed. I don't remember feeling like really unwell, but I remember getting out of bed, and then the next thing I knew, I had to go to the toilet at some point in the middle of the night, and then the next thing I knew, I woke up and I was on the bathroom floor. I don't remember I don't remember how that happened. I don't remember anything. I just remember getting out of bed, and then the next thing I knew, I was lying on my front on the bathroom floor. I managed to call my husband. I think it was about 5 o'clock. It was May, so it was quite light. So it definitely was light. And he obviously called an ambulance, but we weren't in distress. I was in and out of consciousness. I can remember bits, but I don't remember being in real amount of pain or massive distress, but I definitely wasn't conscious. I was in and out of consciousness. And even my husband, actually, he just thought I obviously wasn't very well, but didn't think that I was dying. Anyway, they sent someone in a car, not a full ambulance. And I do remember him saying that my blood pressure was 40/20, which I've since learned is incompatible to life. And I remember him saying to my husband, she shouldn't be able to talk. And I wasn't talking that much, but I was able to communicate on and off with him. And my husband said, well, you don't know her very well, do you? There's nothing that's going to stop her from talking. But so, yeah, I wasn't there. And then I do remember him on his thing on his shoulder saying, A1, 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 which I think was calling more help. And then I was just basically in and out of consciousness. But again, I wasn't distressed. To pass my daughter in the hallway. That's where they were carrying me down, out, and said, oh, I'll see you later. And then I remember turning out on the road, but bits and bobs. I think the first thing I realised that I wasn't well was they ran. When they got me out of the ambulance, they ran into the A&E. And then when I got in there again, because I was in and out of consciousness, I remember them pushing my tummy and screaming in pain, but then being very nice. And then that's really it for me. I remember someone stroking my head and saying, don't worry, Katie, we'll look after you. And I remember thinking, oh, okay. What I know now is that when my husband arrived, quite relaxed, an hour or so later, obviously they said I've got severe sepsis. I was in multi-organ failure, and I was going to die that day. They literally said it like that. And my husband had strolled in thinking, well, she's obviously not very well, but he'd bought my pajamas and pants and toothbrush thinking, it's going to be okay. Everything was swollen. Simon said that my belly looked like bigger than I was when I was 9 months pregnant with the kids, and had golf balls swelling on my hands, and I was yellow as well because of my liver. And there's no photos. I can't imagine it. And of course, being and there's still the whole time they were saying, I was very gravely ill. I think someone said to someone in the family that, you know, they've got a scale or something, and I was top 1 or 2 people most alive, but most ill in the country at that point. So yeah, and there I stayed. I was in induced coma for, I think, minimum of 3 weeks. And I was just incredibly lucky that the ECMO kept me alive, and the drugs, the antibiotics, and all kinds of things. I had hemorrhages, I had blood clots, I had vascular issues. They were talking to my family that they might have the circulation in my fingers and toes, that they might have to amputate my hands and my feet. Yeah, I mean, I can't imagine. I feel so guilty for putting them through this, them having to have these conversations. My husband had to say to the kids on that Saturday, Mummy's going to die. My parents had to come up and see me like that. My sister has always said coming up and seeing you on that Sunday was the worst day of my life. I've never experienced anything like that. And I do feel really guilty that obviously not my fault, but I do feel really guilty that I've put that, and it's been such a long journey ever since that. I feel very guilty that I put everybody through that. But again, I was incredibly lucky. I don't think anyone expected, but the ECMO kept me alive, and my body began to respond to all the treatments and antibiotics and all the obstacles that were thrown my way, because it wasn't an easy journey, and had central lines and all kinds of problems and obstacles. And you take 2 days where you think, oh, it's good, and then you go back to it's not good. And yeah, to day forward, 2 days back, and this. And but after about 3 weeks, they started talking about bringing me round. So going through the process of coming out of a coma is very, very odd experience, with very vivid, completely mad dreams, but not really knowing that you're there. I didn't obviously know that I was in a coma, but I was having these really mad, really visual, really funny dreams that I was in things like I was in spinning classes, and but if I didn't make the next level, I was tipped overboard into a skip. But I suffered really badly from something called severe critical illness myopathy, which I think I've got that right, is I couldn't move. So I'd gone in to hospital, or I'd got ill, having taught 13 classes, Pilates, spinning, HIIT classes that week, super fit. And I woke up and I couldn't even lift. I couldn't move. I just couldn't move. And I don't know why my body had that reaction, but it took me a long, I just couldn't, even months, and I'm still struggling with, I've never really recovered, but I couldn't move my arm. I wouldn't have been able to, even after 4 or 5 weeks of waking up. I had my glasses on, and I couldn't push my glasses up my nose. I couldn't roll onto my side for 2 months. So not only was I waking up and working out what on earth was going on, I was having, if they wanted to get me up, it took sort of 3 physios to lift me. If I needed to be washed, someone had to lift my leg. I couldn't do anything. I had to completely relearn after 3 months, start to relearn, being still lifted out of bed, but how to stand. I mean, heels back, knees forward of the heels, push yourself forward. It's something that you've done for 43 years, and you don't think that you ever having to relearn how to do everything has took a long time. My life has changed. It's never been the same again. I've spent a lot of time in hospital. The last year I've spent with numerous infections and other things that have been triggered from the sepsis. I think I've been in hospital for about 8 weeks in the last year. So I'm still relying on the community to pick me up, pick the family up, support us. I'll be forever grateful for all of that. Certainly for the first 3 or 4 years, I spent in bed or in hospital. And I did manage other things, but not much. I really suffered with inflammation, with sleep, with hair loss. Isn't suffering, but I lost probably 60% of my hair. And I had all this. Someone described it recently, actually, sepsis being like an inflammation nuclear bomb. And I think that is it for me. It's triggered the mobility, the tiredness, the sleep, from being in an ICU and then a hospital environment. It's just triggered lack of sleep, and then continually going back into hospital every 6 weeks is what I had for the first few years, in and out for a hospital, in for a week, 2 weeks, the disruption to the sleep and the effects of all the drugs, and having had kidney failure, and I've had to have liver issue. I've still got really bad ongoing kidney issues, but I have got some function back of my kidneys, but I'm really got quite some big issues with them, but they're functioning at the moment, sort of. But yeah, it's sort of, when I talk about life, I talk about the sepsis. Was it pre me being ill or after? And that's how it is. I'm grateful to be alive. I live a good life, but I have been through the mill.